Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out on this beautiful Monday morning. Before we start to talk about the topic at hand, I just wanted to send our condolences in the morning of our city to Buffalo, to Southern California, to Milwaukee, all of just the senseless, despicable gun violence that seems to rock our country on a regular basis for people that need help as a result of just gun laws that are way too lax in our country as well. And it's not surprising. It's happened so much. On CNN this morning, they were saying 221 mass shootings already this year in our country. And for some reason, we continue to allow it to go on. It's a reflection of who we elect to put in office and the conviction of this country to do something about it. So let's stop for just a minute or so and send our good energy and prayers and thoughts to the people that have been so impacted by this horrific tragedy. All right, in the midst of all this, we got to do what we can to make the country a better place and make our city a better place. So we're here today to talk about one very concrete action that we can do to do that. So I'm happy to be here with so many great fair and affordable housing advocates to recognize the tremendous progress that we've made in Louisville and talk about how we can improve on the work that we've done thus far. We're standing here in the Park Springs Subdivision, which is a mixed-income housing development by Habitat for Humanity of Metro Louisville and the Housing Partnership. This is a great example of quality, affordable housing in our city and what we need more of. Obviously, we talk about this a lot. Fair and affordable housing, whether homes like these or apartments, is critical to the success of our country and our state, in our city. It's a quality of life issue, it's a workforce issue, and like never before, we see people understanding the importance, connection between affordable housing, attracting talent, and growing our economy. With the COVID-19 pandemic, some of the country's workforce shifted to working remotely, and people realized that they don't have to live in small apartments on expensive coasts. In cities like Louisville, they're finding a higher quality of life without the expense of a big city. We like that, but we need to protect that. As we've seen peer cities grow, we've also seen their cost of living increase exponentially, which pushes people out. So what we're trying to show is how you can regenerate a city without displacing people. So investment in affordable housing is an absolute key to that. Now, we also recognize that there are people in our city facing homelessness or housing insecurity for whom Louisville is not affordable. And we know from the 2019 Housing Needs Assessment that we need more than 30,000 new units of affordable housing to fill the gap just for our lowest income residents. So it's 30,000 in Louisville, it would be 45,000 in Nashville, 50,000 in Indianapolis. This is really a national crisis. Those numbers were before COVID-19, which obviously really disrupted the economy in many unpredictable ways, sent the economy into a tailspin. People faced job loss or reduced hours, reduced income. Now we have record low unemployment, and people are still trying to figure out how all this mashes together. In the midst of that, we keep working. I want to recognize our team at the Office of Housing and Community Development, some of whom are here today, in our Office of Resilience and Community Services, who have worked tirelessly since the beginning of the pandemic to keep Louisvillians housed through our eviction prevention programs. Through these programs, we've allocated over $100 million to help thousands of families remain housed. And I'm really proud of our team because we saw this money as a imperative, a moral imperative to move quickly to keep people housed. And I thought all cities would be that way. But what we found out from the White House is that Louisville has been the most efficient and the most expedient of getting this money put to use to keep people in their homes. So I want to say thank you to our team here for a great job. I think they look at this as if, that's my home. It's not obvious their home, but they treat this money like it is their money so that they can keep people housed. So I really, really is proud of our team for that. So ultimately, the way to prevent evictions is to grow our affordable housing inventory, which will mean fewer people spending more money than what they should be on housing. And I'm proud to say that since the start of my administration, Louisville Metro, in partnership with Metro Council, has been a real leader on this issue. This is one of the focus areas when I came into office. We've dedicated over $106 million toward affordable housing. Just for some contrast, the most any previous administration had spent was $7 million. So this was a big focus area of ours, in an area that really needs help. We've done it together. And then my recent budget proposal that I gave about a month ago, I've called for another $10 million for affordable housing with the FY23 budget cycle. So far, you would expect results when you got this money, and we've seen great results. We've created and or preserved more than 5,000 affordable housing units. So we're really making a big impact on that 30,000 number. That work would not have been done without the Louisville Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I want to recognize Christy McCravey, their executive director of the trust fund. Thank you. From the very beginning, Christy was like, okay, Mayor, we need more money. We got to put it to use. And I'm like, I hear you. Let's figure out how we can get it done. And so we worked really hard on it. Bill Hollander, who I always want to mention when we talk about affordable housing, was a great advocate to bring the council together with their priorities and our priorities, and we've seen wonderful things of people living in better conditions right now. So we're good about that. These dollars translate to real impact in our community. When you see big problems, how do you make a difference? One person at a time. A difference in the lives of Louisvillians like Ronak Al-Janabi, a wife and mother of two who moved to the U.S. from Iraq at age 14. After struggling to pay rent on a $1,300 a month apartment, her family was able to move into the Middletown Apartments, an 80-unit affordable housing community build with trust fund dollars, where they pay under $900 a month for 3 bedrooms. That $400 a month really makes a big difference with her family. 72-year-old James Cuff, who purchased a house on 28th Street in Russell just last month after receiving help from the Louisville Metro's Down Payment Assistance Program, one of my favorite programs. Mr. Cuff lives on a fixed income, and with the help from the city and the Housing Partnership, which used trust fund dollars to rehab the once vacant home, Mr. Cuff is now able to age in place without financial burden difficulty and build wealth in his home that he can pass down to the next generations. This is what we love about the program. Last year, we dedicated $89 million in the American Rescue Plan funds for housing and houselessness initiatives. So that included $40 million more to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, $4 million for Louisville Metro's Down Payment Assistance Program to help residents achieve home ownership, $4 million for our home repair program to help keep people in their homes, $32 million for permanent supportive housing, and $9 million for the safe outdoor space and bridge housing at the site on College Street. That is a good day's work. So these investments and more are necessary as we move toward the goal of having safe and stable housing for each and every Louisvillian. And that's a goal that we share with our dedicated housing advocates, including the Metropolitan Housing Coalition. This nonprofit has been a tremendous partner with Metro for many years and pushes us to strive to be better each and every day. So with us today is Tony Curtis, Executive Director of the Housing Coalition's Board, who's going to share a few words with us. Tony?
Thank you, Mayor Fisher, for the invitation to participate in the kickoff of Affordable Housing Week. While we have made great strides recently in funding affordable housing through the Louisville Affordable Housing Trust Fund, American Rescue Plan funding commitments, which I will reiterate was a great example of the community speaking loudly and clearly on the housing needs of our community. There remains a lot of work to be done to create housing opportunity and housing choice for all Louisvillians across all of Louisville. We have an unmet need of over 31,000 units at or below 30% area median income, and an additional need for 22,500 units at or below 50% AMI. The cost is currently projected to be over $5 billion to meet the housing needs of families with the lowest incomes in our community. In this part of town where we stand today, where we gather, there is an unmet need of over 2,000 units itself at or below 50% AMI. The Metropolitan Housing Coalition is committed to advocating and educating in the community for attainable housing for all by identifying a dedicated funding source for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, by creating wealth building opportunities to eliminate the 22,000 homeownership gap between black and white households, by continuing to make the latest data available through the State of Metropolitan Housing Report. And we will be releasing the 2022 State of Metropolitan Housing Report on June 9th. So we would love to see everybody there to reveal the latest housing data. And last but not least, by reforming the Land Development Code. If we were able to take the spirit and the intent of Louisville's comprehensive plan, Plan 2040, and expand the Land Development Code to include tools that create housing choice and opportunity, we can decrease residential segregation and increase housing choice in all parts of our city, increase the production of attainable housing, and increase the production of diverse housing types to meet a growing need for our diverse population. So I always say housing is the keystone issue in our community. An investment in attainable housing for all that is fair, that is accessible, that is equitable and attainable is an investment in people, our neighbors who are around us, and has a very real impact on access to health care, economic opportunity, educational success, access to quality food, on public safety, and on so many more important issues that each and every one of us cares about deeply. Affordable housing, attainable housing is not a district-by-district issue. It is a citywide issue of the utmost importance, and it is our challenge on a daily basis to find the real solutions that are people-centered and people-driven. So this is yet again another example of how we move forward to create housing opportunity for people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony. So while we're making unprecedented progress here in the city on affordable housing, you can see by the numbers that Tony talked about that, it's more than a down payment on what we need to do, but we got a long way to go. And when we talk about a $5 billion need here in Louisville, Louisville's population represents 0.2% of the entire U.S. population. So I can't do that math in my head. But if you did $5 billion and extrapolated it on up, that's what the need in the country roughly is for more affordable housing to suit this need. So it's important that cities kind of block and tackle and do what we can, but you can see this is a national problem that needs national funding to really resolve it once and for all. And there is no more fundamental issue. I guess food is one, but shelter then comes into place. And without basic shelter, it is just hard for anybody to manage and get by. So we're going to continue to do the great work that we're doing here in our city, but I just bring this up because we've got to advocate with our state representatives and our federal representatives to address this issue once and for all in a country that is the wealthiest country in the whole world. It's just how we decide to spend our money and where that wealth goes in terms of how we address this problem with affordable housing. So let's continue the fight. Speaking of the fight, I want to bring up Rob Block, the CEO of the Habitat for Humanity for Metro Louisville. Habitat has been an incredible partner. They've been fighting for an awful long time for good and fair housing. For over 35 years here in Louisville, the Habitat has revitalized neighborhoods and provided affordable housing solutions to local families in need. They're part of the entire Habitat network all across the country. We're blessed to have them. The mixed-income Park Springs subdivision is a wonderful example of the great work that Habitat for Humanity of Metro Louisville does. Rob Block.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being out here on this beautiful morning. I can't help but start by saying thank you. Certainly Mayor Fisher and his administration, the support for affordable housing and your administration, Christie and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, just extraordinary. The ability to do this project and so many others, y'all have been the gap in that, so thank you. My buddy Andy Hawes over there with the Housing Partnership, the dream of this subdivision really couldn't have come to fruition without the Housing Partnership, so thank you. Habitat staff, there's several Habitat staff members here. You guys make it happen. Thank you. And we have Habitat board member Robin Bray who's here. So y'all give it up for the Habitat staff and board. And Tanya Montgomery, who's also on the board and on, there she is. Hi, Tanya. So I love some of the comments about need that folks were sharing up here. I can't help but make some real connection. We're standing on a floor system for a Habitat home buyer who earns less than 50% of area median income. Her home will start if you come back in a week, there will be a house here. We'll have literally scores of volunteers who will come on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday and transform this floor system into a home for Felicia. This has been a dream of hers. She came and saw this neighborhood and thought, I want to live here. I want to invest here. I want to make this my home. We open up applications at Habitat once a year right now. We did that last month, in March, I believe, and we had 900 families apply in 9 days. 900 families in 9 days who said, I really want to buy a Habitat house. The need is great. When you think about the reality of our community, there's a whole lot of families who just don't have access to an affordable payment for a place to live. Certainly, there's a depth of need in terms of the rental space. We are very aware of this, and as Habitat, we support it. And our niche at Habitat is affordable home ownership. And so there is a component of fixing the rungs of the ladder so that families might have the opportunity to climb to a better, more stable place. This young man, who's actually sitting on his tricycle, was one of the first Habitat children in this subdivision. And I was talking to somebody on the mayor's staff as I walked up this morning, and she said, well, this is a really good-looking neighborhood. I don't really see what the change is. And then the school bus came in. Helping moms and dads give their kids a chance at the equity building power of home ownership is absolutely one of the core things we do at Habitat for Humanity. Thank you, Christy. In that vein, I am thrilled to have a Habitat homeowner with us today. Sohaib Ahmed bought his Habitat house about 2 years ago. Sohaib's got a great story personally. He grew up in the Middle East. He was a translator for American troops. And when he was looking to buy his Habitat house, we found a sponsor who said, I want to sponsor a house for a veteran. We introduced this enlisted person to Sohaib, and they said, that's what I want to do. I want to sponsor Sohaib's house. And he's been a tremendous volunteer for us. He took off from work this morning, and he translates for us for free. We keep trying to pay him. All he'll take is sandwiches. But I am confident that there are more people out there like that soldier. There are more people out there like Sohaib. What we do at Habitat is make a connection between people who have the capacity to give and the people who can use that support to transform their lives and the lives of their children. We've done it 575 times in Louisville, and 125 of those families have paid off their mortgages. So without further, thank you, Robin. Without further ado, Sohaib Ahmed.
Good morning, guys. My name is Sohaib Ahmed. I came to United States 2008 with my family. I came from Syria after escaped from Iraq to Syria. It was very hard that time. Anyway, so from that time, I was so busy, like, raising my family, working hard until that time, until like 3 years ago, I found Habitat, which is, I'm very lucky, like, have a Habitat house now. It's very affordable. My kids, my wife, everybody very happy with that. I'm happy personally. I mean, it's no more thinking about like getting home or something like that. No rent anymore, nothing. So I would like to again thanks everybody supporting me, uh, like the staff from Habitat working with my home, and I mean it's amazing. I mean, thank you, Mr. Rob, everybody. They keep supporting me, so that's why I'm giving them. This is just very little bit. I cannot like doing what they did for my family. So, like working for free with them, this is nothing for me, seriously. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Sohaib. You make our city a better place. We appreciate you. Okay, as it's clear from the speakers we've already heard from, the city government can't do it alone. We got a lot of partners here, and that's what's making all this work. So we need advocates, right, to make sure that elected officials keep funding. We need developers who understand the importance of this type of stock. We also need help from the state. We need a state-level affordable housing tax credit to incentivize investments in affordable housing. I want to give a shout out to the Kentucky Affordable Housing Coalition, which has been working hard to push for state action to make investing in affordable housing more attractive and to help cities all across from Kentucky. Now, unfortunately, their representative could not be with us here today, but they've asked that I read a statement from them. So this statement is from the Kentucky Affordable Housing Coalition. Quote, Kentucky's housing crisis has landed thousands of Kentuckians in untenable living situations, and the effects and aftermaths of the COVID-19 pandemic have only worsened these housing access issues for Kentuckians. With inflation on the rise, it's critical that members of our communities, such as veterans, retiring seniors, teachers, first responders, and those entering the workforce for the first time, have a home that will meet their budget and not break the bank. With the demand so high right now, we do not have time to wait to start building housing, and there is a proven solution that can help Kentucky increase resources for affordable housing development. Kentucky needs to pass legislation to enact a state workforce and affordable housing tax credit program. Currently, over 20 states have approved similar programs, and in March of 22, Indiana passed their first state housing tax credit. Current estimations note that 5-year state workforce and affordable housing tax credit would lead to the construction of over 6,500 affordable housing units, creation of 3,500 jobs annually, and over $178 million in state and local tax revenues. We've been working diligently to pass a state housing tax credit in Kentucky and will continue to fight for the passage of this bill. But we need your help. Talk to your local and state officials and continue to let them know about the critical need for affordable housing in Kentucky. So let's give it up to the Kentucky Affordable Housing Coalition for their statement and hard work. All right, so just wrapping this up, I want to thank everybody for coming out. We are proclaiming this week Affordable Housing Week here in the city for even more attention that we give to it than the other 51 weeks as well. But I would submit that every day is an Affordable Housing Day in our city. So thanks everybody for coming out, and we're happy to take any questions.
Mayor, I know that affordable housing has been a big emphasis of the city. For those who are just above the poverty line and struggling to pay for rent, is there anything that your administration is working on for those type of people? And what insight could you provide for those struggling to pay rent above the poverty line?
Yeah, so there's different levels of assistance available for where you're at based on adjusted median income. So we frequently talk about the 30% level, but when you go to 50% and 80% as well, there's different incentives or payment factors kick in there. So I think I'm saying that properly. Is that right, Laura? You want to add anything to that?
Just tell them to go to. I would send anybody to stopmyeviction.org. I think for rental assistance, we are sending Jefferson County residents to the Kentucky Housing Corporation, and they do have rent assistance available. And like the mayor said, it's not just the poverty line. It really depends on your income and how you've been impacted by COVID. But I really do think that there is help out there for most families right now.
I'll brag a little bit too on our down payment homeowner assistance program. We've doubled the amount of money that's going into that with ARP funds and then also in our fiscal year budgets. That program is available to about 150 people a year that have been paying their rent just dependably for years and years and years, but can't come up with the money for a down payment. So this is a grant that allows them then to purchase a home, and what they were paying in rent now goes toward a mortgage. So they're building wealth in that home, and then they can pass it along to future generations. And for the most part, this is focused on our black community that for years could not get a mortgage because of redlining. So this is a way to restore some of that injustice, and it's a beautiful program that when you see people get those grants, it's a life changer for them. Well, when you take the 30% level and 50% level, and I think you said 80% level too, Tony?
I think it's up to 50. I think it's because of the increase.
Okay.
Due to COVID.
So the 3.5 was for the 31,000 at 30% and below. So now when we go up to 50% and below, that number just keeps getting bigger and bigger. That number's always been there. It's just we have focus on the people that can least afford housing. And as I said, you translate that number and then just extrapolate it for another city, whatever their size is, and this is this huge national problem I'm talking about. The volume of homes we're building per year for affordable housing?
Yeah, just generally, more funding helps build more units. We don't have numbers, but the 5,000 units that have been built, the mayor talked about, a lot of that will increase over the past year and in the future with the new money associated with it. We will see more units. We'll see more units rehabbed. So there are, units that are just not in great condition and need to be in better condition, and then we'll see new units built across the city.
Just for example, the $10 million that was allocated last year, we have allocated $9 million of that, and that has resulted, or will result, of course they're not online yet, but will result in over 760 units of housing. So that's just an example of how it.
Certainly, COVID was a challenge, right? I mean, prices have gone up considerably in terms of building materials, and supply chain issues are a real challenge. I mean, we've got anything that's tied to petroleum. Vinyl flooring seems to take forever to get. We still have some challenges with the supply line for appliances. So through COVID, we didn't change our prices to our home buyers. Most people understand Habitat sells houses at no profit with a zero interest loan. That's typically how we work. So when the costs went up, we just ate that cost. We did fundraise for it, and the community was generous. We were able to keep our production. We dropped about 5% in COVID. We've increased 10% this year. And our goal is to get to, so we typically do 20 to 23 houses. We want to get to 25 in terms of house production. We also do repairs, and that's one of the things that Habitat raised was we actually have done 20-ish repairs for the last few years. This year we're going to do 50. One of the things we found, particularly in core urban neighborhoods, is there's a lot of people that own their own home who struggle to stay in there, and so our repair program has responded to that. There's a lot of need in that space.
I mean, there's not huge amounts of available land, but you can see in this subdivision, for instance, it's an example of doing a greenfield approach.
The Director of Office of Housing and Community Development, and so we handle the affordable housing part, but we also handle vacant properties, which is not something we necessarily talk about when we're in this area, but Louisville does have a few thousand vacant properties, and we do not own them. Those are mostly vacant lots. Those can be built on once we can get them out of that abandoned state. So I think that the more we can rehab properties that we already have and make them affordable, especially in areas in the East, and the more we can create new housing that is functional for today's families and in good condition and energy efficient in some of our older neighborhoods, that it's a both and answer. Mm-hmm.
And then last, when you see multi-unit housing, obviously that densifies it, and that helps us as well. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out on this beautiful day. Take care.